Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today I have Tracy McBurney with me, who I love having with me because we do some great shows. Thanks for being here, Trace.
Thanks for asking. She is. There she is.
We've had some interesting things about what's been going on, but I thought I would start with one of my stories. One of my stories, right? And it has to do with me trying to get in a really healthy place. And I've been maybe overdoing it a bit, but I know that it also has been helping me in some ways. But almost the entire time I've had these interesting pains in my thighs. So it started in the beginning with just like numbness. Now I get like burning sensations and sometimes like a ripping sensation. I only get it for about 3/4 of my walk, and the last quarter it's kind of nice. If I have something else that hurts, then that takes my attention. But it's like, you know how when you put your attention on something, and pain is one of those things that if your attention's on it, it seems to kind of zero in on it. But if I'm distracted, if I'm walking with somebody else and chatting, it's fine. Anyway, this is me I'm trying to get my body into a happy place, trying to say, you know what, I don't need pain to motivate me to walk. I just want to walk. I just want to feel my happy place. I just want to feel kind of that breath and just go, yeah, I enjoy doing this. Let's find that happy medium where I can do this without pain.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we were talking earlier before the show, and you were also talking about the kinds of things that you were doing to kind of help with all of this. And one of the things that you said to me was that you were putting a knee brace on your knee to be able to help manage some of this pain when you were going to sleep. And I asked you, why are you doing this? Because that just didn't feel like a right choice.
Yeah.
And you said, because I'm trying to find a happy place to be.
Yeah.
And it was like, if we widen all of this out, as I was kind of looking at it, I kind of went, well, that's the issue. You're trying to find a happy place to be. But I don't think you're envisioning that there is one. Right. So I'm looking for this happy place to be, and I'm trying to, it was almost like a lack of clarity. So what I saw when you said you'd put a knee brace on your knee to try and resolve this situation to bring the happy place to you, I kind of saw that was unclear thinking. So then I just kind of sat with that, and I went, okay, well, how far does this unclear thinking go? And then I just kind of expanded it out to kind of like, okay, so I'm looking for a happy place to be, and is that even possible? Well, because I'm kind of digging in the belief place, right?
Right.
Like with all the stuff that's going on right now, do you even see it as possible? So we were talking before the show, and I was throwing out all of these ideas, and we both landed on the concept that we were going to start the show with these new decrees that I've been learning and playing with. Decree spelled Decrees, if I'm not being clear in how I'm saying it. Just powerful words that can shift things from third dimension consciousness to fifth dimension consciousness when they're used, and they're used properly. So the two newest ones that have landed into my wheelhouse are the decree of in allowance And the other one that landed on that same day was the decree of thank you. And in order to use thank you as a decree, you do need a little bit of understanding about what you can't do, or how you can't create how you can't create what you're doing by trying to create a sentence starting with thank you. It cannot be used as a decree when you say something like, thank you for anything. The word for cannot land after the word thank you. If you're using thank you as a decree, it's a pure statement of thank you, and then a pure statement of what the energy is. Whether it is an emotion, or whether it's a belief, or whether it's a circumstance. And so it's thank you, anger. And you're thinking about potentially where that anger has come from. Thank you, sadness. Thank you, grief. Thank you, belief that there really is no happy place to be right now. Thank you, looking for a happy place to be. Thank you, putting a knee brace on my knee to help to deal with pain so I can be in a happier place. And as I say those things, an energy just goes up. It just goes up. Now, if we change it to say, thank you for the experience of putting a knee brace on my knee to try and deal with pain to find a happy place, then everything comes into the body and constricts in the body and gets really heavy in the body. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means that's not what we want.
Right.
We, as I was taught, the only way that we can put thank you for something and not have that density show up in our life is if we have completely 100% resolved the experience, where we are already at a pure peace place with that experience. And then we can say, thank you for that. Because there's no density now. There's no anything now. It's just, it's been enlightened upon itself. The decree in allowance. So in allowance of my need to find a happy place to be. An allowance of all of the choices and decisions that I have made to take care of my body, to have my body find a happier place. It's just, it's like a deep acceptance. It's like, it's bigger than acceptance. I'm accepting and more. I'm allowing. I'm like open arm allowing. It's almost like a divine hug is coming in for the me that made those choices, even if they weren't clear choices. I was trying to achieve a goal and I didn't necessarily achieve it, but I was working to achieve that goal. And now I'm just allowing for that divine hug to come into me, who might have failed to get the result that I was looking for. But I'm just allowing for that divine hug. I'm just in allowance of the me that tried that. I'm in allowance of the me that reached there. I'm in allowance of the me that did something. I'm in the allowance of the me that didn't just do nothing. I'm an allowance of me who reached for achieving a goal of finding a happy place, even though there might have been a belief system embedded that went, there is no happy place. You know, happy places are being taken away left, right, and center. It's like there is no happy place for me to be, and yet I still seek to know it and find it.
Right.
An allowance of the me that wouldn't give up. Even though I'd already decided, or even though it had already been decided that there was no happy place to be right now, or that they'd all been taken away, or that they all would be taken away. In allowance of the me that has believed these things, an allowance of the me that moved forward anyway. I love that one, that moved forward anyway. Sit with that for a sec, Laurie.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment, an allowance of the me that moved forward anyway and put that knee brace on, or did something else, or put a corn pad on, or put a heating pad on. An allowance of the me that moved forward anyway. An allowance of the me that wouldn't give up. Yeah, but isn't that great to feel that? And then you're kind of getting in touch with the strength of you, right? The will of you, the power of you to challenge something, to challenge some embedded belief system by taking action even when that embedded belief system is still there. So an allowance of the you that took those actions, even with embedded belief systems there that stood in a different place. An allowance of the you that didn't see those, recognize those, or didn't believe that those were changeable, or those could ever be released, removed, those cages, those boxes could ever be lifted, boxes in consciousness. An allowance of the you that never saw any of that could be challenged or any of that could change. An allowance of the you that might be holding false loyalties, false responsibilities, that wouldn't allow these things to be seen or challenged, released, removed, released, removed. And an allowance of the you that's sitting here right now having this conversation and an allowing for all of this to change. If it's safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of the all, just allowing for that. You just feel the energy of that. I can feel that impacting the brain. I can feel it impacting all the way down the body. It's almost like there's new consciousness, almost like new divine programming coming in. More of the divine light of you coming in. Yeah, really nice. So then we can play with in allowance and thank you in some of these same ways with regard to pain. So is there any part of you physically that is in pain right now?
Not so much pain, just sensitive.
Stiffness?
Sensitive?
Sensitive?
Yeah, really sensitive.
Okay, so what part, is it it's a physical part, so what physical part of the body of you is currently sensitive?
It's my right thigh, above the knee, about midway down. Okay.
And they say that area is that whole area that you're describing on the two inner thighs, that connects into a chakra, a grounding chakra, that's one of the hidden chakras. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why this is poking around.
Well, ironically or not ironically, the thing that helps the most is when I walk on the grass instead of the cement.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
And I keep asking for it to be grounded, but clearly I'm not allowing it. But it does help.
Well, I do find it interesting that very region that you're talking about on both sides, like both thighs, is connected into that grounding chakra. And there are 3 more chakras that exist, the hidden ones that exist below that, one sitting in between the knees, and one sitting in between the ankles, and then one at the base of the feet. Yep. And that because all of these have been hidden and not necessarily activated and not necessarily utilized, what I was hearing in a talk is the consequence of that is that the root chakra we don't really get an opportunity to recognize that root chakra as truthfully being a manifestation chakra, because we're just asking it to perform the functions of all these lower chakras as they are not recognized, as they are not open, as they are not activated, and as they are not utilized. And so I like to play the what if game, because really, who am I? I've just kind of learned that stuff myself. So in the what if game, like, what if that is true? What if that is true? What if there are these hidden chakras that are not allowing for us to really utilize that root chakra, our root chakra, as truthfully more of a manifestation chakra for us. And that we're not really opening ourselves up to being able to utilize the grounding cord at the grounding chakra, which is the chakra that exists in between the thighs. And we're just not grounding ourselves and anchoring ourselves to this earth in ways that we could. And so what if that's true? What if there are these hidden chakras? And what if it were true, what if we could then reach to our divine essence of self with the allowance, in allowance of activating these, awakening these, allowing us to experience our relationship with our legs, which you're saying you're having this issue with, our relationship with our legs and our feet and this earth in a new, more upgraded way.
Yes, please.
When I learned about the hidden chakras, they also speak about the hidden chakra at Thymus, which they connect to a breathing chakra. It's interesting. It's interesting that we might have a hidden chakra that really regulates breathing in life, and it's been hidden and not activated, not recognized. And we have another hidden chakra between the throat chakra and the third eye, and it's considered a harmony chakra, and it literally sits at the roof of our mouth. And what's going on right now is we are in serious disharmony with each other, and not having the harmony chakra with all of its information, with all of its wisdom, with all of its library of information available to us to help us through this time frame. The thymus chakra and all of its information. I like to think of these chakras. They are wheels of light, but they also have libraries of information. And so a library of information connected to breathing in a fuller life that we don't have accessible to us. And what if that's true? What if that's true? Then would you be willing to be in allowance of allowing these previously hidden chakras to be divinely administered to be divinely activated, to be divinely harmonized and balanced with the other chakras within your system, so that you were then working with a much fuller chakra system of technology than previously available. So in allowance of more wisdom coming in from the corridors of these newly activated chakras, in allowance of a deeper connection to this earth, a greater connection to this universe, a greater recognition of how anchored we are above and below, and how much better anchored we are above and below as we allow for these greater truths of more of our technology, our internal technology, to be recognized, to be allowed to be utilized. In allowance of all of that, if it's safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of you, highest and best interest of the all, we are in allowance of that then. So you described the inner thigh area as being sensitive. In allowance of this sensitive at my inner thigh area, in allowance of this sensitive in my inner thigh area to be fully resolved, in allowance of all of the pain that I have experienced while walking here in Toronto at this time, exercising at this time, trying to take care of my health better, in allowance of all of the pain that I have been experiencing as I have been working to take care of my health better and to take better care of my body. In allowance of all of that pain being released, better managed, fully resolved, in allowance of any beliefs that I have held, or that I am holding, or that I have created, or that others have created for me, that have brought forward this experience that I am currently experiencing. In allowance of allowing myself to be fully released from any belief that I have created through my own perceptions, to be fully released from any other belief created by any other person, in allowance of allowing myself to be fully released from any beliefs that have come in from my past ancestrally, if they are not operating in my highest and best interest. And I can feel some things lifting. Mm-hmm. It's almost like lifting like taffy, which literally says to me, when things are lifting like taffy, it says that there are potentially blocks, reversals, resistances, interferences, and visible obstacles that might be holding on to things. So in allowance of the releasing of all the blocks, reversals, resistances, interferences, and visible obstacles that might be holding on to some of this stuff, this dimension, any lifetime, in allowance that they also be released if operating, if this is safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of you, safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of the all. And that just allows things to move way faster. Now, I like that we're doing some things. I like that we're moving some things. I can feel energy moving. That's got to be a good thing. That's got to be lifting some weight. That's got to be changing some perceptions. That's got to be, but I also want to go back to where we landed, which is, have we affected any kind of result at all to that inner thigh sensitivity? Or is it just the same?
No, I can definitely felt that. I felt things releasing. There's still a little bit, but it's different. It feels this. I think the last bit had to do with the knee thing, because it, and I just took it off when we were talking in the beginning, so it's like everything's sort of shifting. I don't have any knots anywhere. That was why I was putting on the braces, because it's like I'd get some muscle knots, and so if I put the brace up high enough, it would cover the muscle knots, but I think it was doing something else as well. So anyway, I can feel that lightening up. It's definitely shifting.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too.
I like it. There's all this stuff coming up through the center of you and all the way up through the top of your head now. And so you just breathe. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. An allowance of things changing for me now. And changing for me for the better. An allowance that this can be possible. That even though all this other crazy stuff is going on right now, in this city, in this province, that things can be better for me than they currently are. And I can find a happy place. That there are still happy places for me to be, and my body can still be in a happy place. An allowance of the idea that all of this craziness can be going on. All of these crazy choices can be going on in this province and in Toronto. And that my body can still be in a happy place and can still find and know a happy place. An allowance of any blocks, reversals, resistances, interferences, obstacles, invisible obstacles to this being so. An allowance of releasing all of these. If it's safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of self, at highest and best interest of this all, for I am part of this all. What I feel, you can tell me, what if I had to put a word on it, because I could feel a bunch of stuff happening, like this stuff unlocking and starting to unlock around heart, almost what I would call almost like a heartburn feeling, and then coming into jaw and feeling like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's lifting from jaw. And when I think about these two places, or when I connect in my experiences to those two places, it's kind of where anger's held.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of that. I feel like we're in a modern day witch hunt, so it's like, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating.
Okay, an allowance of the modern day witch hunt. An allowance of this all turning out so differently than it did in the olden day witch hunt. Feel the energy of that.
Yeah, it's amazing how different it is. It's, I just keep hearing all these horror stories with my friends, and it's just so disheartening, but releasing it is just so much nicer.
Yeah. Thank you, disheartening. Because if it was so disheartening to you that we are having this conversation. Staying in that place of that level of disheartening was so troublesome to you, we are having this conversation. You so don't want to succumb to that or be buried by that, we are having this conversation. Thank you, disheartening.
It's amazing the words that we use to describe things, because what did you say? You felt the stuff on my heart releasing? Disheartening?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, wording is an interesting concept.
Thank you, this world becoming so troublesome. But do you feel as I say that, the lifting? It's not coming into me. It's not coming into me. It's not solidifying in me. It's rising up and out.
Where I have been holding on to it.
Right.
Right.
In allowance of this troublesome world we are living in. In allowance of believing that there is nothing positive that is ever going to come out of what is being created in this troublesome world. In allowance of feeling helpless to change it. In allowance of feeling powerless to change it. In allowance of opening myself to even higher light, more highly evolved light to help me with this. In allowance of my decision to partner, to work with, to be with more light, to bring more light in, more love in to this human experience that I am having. In allowance of recognizing I can't do this myself, and I need to be in really good, beautiful partnerships with unbelievable forces of light, bringing more light into the human experience than we have ever known. In allowance of that. If it's safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest, then I sit in allowance of this. I didn't know we were going to go here. But this has been exactly where I've been in the last month. And it partially came home from the fact that, you try, just even with the microcosm of your own family, you try to bring good information to the people of your family. You try to, from a very compassionate, loving, very connected place, you deliver really good, truthful information from a really connected place, and it can't be seen, it's not seen, it's not embraced, it's not recognized, it does nothing. It changes nothing. Like I'm sitting here in this really divinely connected, beautiful place with really good, truthful information, and it's not being heard, and it's not being embraced. Yes. And it's changing nothing in my family. It's changing nothing with the people that I love most, in allowance of that experience, just the way it has been. Because it inspired me to reach for more. Not to reach for more in an arrogant way, and not even to reach for more on the day that I decided to reach for more. I wasn't reaching for more from a desperate place either. I was literally saying, show me more. Show me more about how people can be helped, how we can be helped, because this isn't working and people aren't listening. And people are so grooved where they're grooved and so certain where they're certain. And we're so stuck in allowance of being stuck, in allowance of how stuck we are. And so some people might be doing the same thing when they're praying to their God, whatever that would be, Literally, we need more. Thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing more. Thank you for bringing more help. We need more help. Thank you, thank you, thank you for opening the doors, cracking things open. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I keep thinking this month, it's come back numerous times. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Life is Beautiful. Mm-hmm. The movie where the man and his child are taken into a concentration camp, and he desperately wants his child to not view this circumstance with the suffering hardships that many would be viewing it from. And he was trying to work to paint a world for his son that was a beautiful world. And he was trying to show us, deliver, we were being shown in the movie the power of perception. And I think about it. I think about it a lot in this last month as things are compressing and compressing and compressing and contracting on those that are the unvaccinated problem children. And I've been brought back to that movie several times.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It's not, I never, that even, just because I found that movie just so touching, but also so heartbreaking, but that's a perfect analogy of what's happening and how we can try and make that life a little bit happier with everything going on, which, interesting.
Yeah. And really recognizing these ways that we're feeling, not necessarily to judge them at all, just to recognize, like I like to still go back to the dignity of the experience, the dignity of all experience. Where did that lead you ultimately? That feeling of such disheartened feelings that you were in the presence of with your friends. And I gotta say, choices got made, because that's the dignity of every experience, is there are always choices. There's always choices that get made and ways to perceive things. And as I saw it, that disheartening time frame was so troubling. It's one of the reasons why we're here talking about it right now and bringing it into this talk. I went here, I had this discussion, I heard these things because that was so disheartening, and I couldn't stay there, and I didn't want to live there, and I didn't want that as my life. And I say, yes, 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 she didn't want that as her life, and she didn't want that as a life for her friends. And so here we are, releasing those feelings of disheartening, and they weren't just your feelings. So as they get released back to source and moved out through the in-allowance, that has got to impact your friends, because some of those feelings, if not a lot of those feelings, belong to them, and you brought those in. And now they are being released back to source, and they are being freed from those feelings. And I loved where we went. I mean, I've never actually gone there before. I loved it. The seeing the witch hunts, and then recognizing, oh, right, what sentence can we create? What meaningful sentence within allowance can we create that just flips that on its head? Oh yeah, in allowance of the witch hunt as we're perceiving it, completely landing in a different place, and us creating a whole different ending to this thing called the witch hunt. Because really, what we're not finished with, what we don't bring into pure peace, not just peace, but pure peace. Pure peace is achieved when that divine light touches it and it ministers to it. And until then, it's just our version of peace. We did not did not even conceptualize the concept of pure peace for that time frame. That time frame has never been brought into stillness. It's never been brought into pure peace, love, and gratitude, and laid down. And we have an opportunity to do that right now. But if we're going to just sit here and judge it, and that's all we're going to do is judge it, and then get into our disheartened place and into our angry place and stay in our angry place and just want to take placards out and yell and scream at people, we're not getting it.
Sorry. I just got some pictures of, me out with my big placards of what I've been holding on to. Sorry, it's kind of funny.
No, it's great. I'm just not that kind of activist.
Yeah.
I'm too peaceful. I'm too gentle and peaceful a being to be that kind of an activist, but that doesn't mean I don't take action, and that doesn't mean I don't care. But I want this laid to rest for us all, finally. So I like using these decrees. They're very cool. This allowance one is awesome. An allowance of my own judgment, an allowance of how long I stayed in judgment, an allowance of how many days I've just been spitting nails angry at the government, just so in judgment of foolishness and lack of clarity, an allowance of my judgment of all of it, an allowance of my desire for a new government that is clear, a new government that sees clearly, a new government that allows for divine guidance to come in, divine clarity to come in, an allowance of a new government operating within me, an allowance of the corruption in my own government to be released, removed, administered to, divinely administered to, an allowance of cleaning up my own lack of clarity in my own government of myself, an allowance of my unwillingness to complete that work, an allowance of personal work, an allowance of my belief that says perhaps that's never going to happen, or there's always going to be corruption in the government, an allowance of that belief that there's always going to be corruption in the government because we're human and because that's just part of the human experience. So there's no getting around that. There's no changing that. There's just acceptance of that. An allowance of my own acceptance of corruption in the government, and therefore corruption in my own government, with a belief that says that's always going to be there. There's no other way to be as a human than to find your way into corruption some point, somewhere, and then it's just a question of how deeply you get yourself corrupted.
Wow, this is deep. This is really cool.
An allowance of all of that. And look at all the places that we've gone today when we just started with this sensitivity at your thigh.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. We've been, this has been really powerful and deep. My goodness. It's just, wow. Wow. I didn't expect we'd get here. But it's true. Our own government is, it's our own beliefs within ourselves. It's amazing. You're bringing up some great things.
Well, think about how many times in an allowance of our belief, the human belief, our belief in this country, that there's nothing that we are able to do about corruption in our government because there's always going to be corruption there.
Yeah.
What do you want? We're human. An allowance of our acceptance that there's always going to be corruption in our government. There's always going to be people operating that way in our government. That's always going to be part of our human experience. And that's never going to change. An allowance of how we try to control the corruption, that's never going to change. How we try to lessen it, how we try to stifle it, but how we continue to believe that it's always going to be there. And we're foundationally as humans never going to be operating out of a place of true integrity and clarity. An allowance of a world and a government that we don't see changing and that we accept is never going to change. An allowance of a government within ourselves where our divine light within is not acknowledged or turned to. or even recognized as part of our government. That's an interesting one. It is interesting. It is interesting that I don't know. I just look at it. It's interesting in the consciousness of us, what we see as important, as we're electing leaders, for example, what we see as important, what we see as valuable. Oh, that leader is charming. That leader looks good.
Right.
That leader looks good on camera. That leader looks good on film. But we never really sit there and really just kind of say, what does this leader turn to within themselves? Where do they go within themselves when they're making those important decisions? Who do they turn to? Who is their team? Not just who is the leader, who is their team? And what do they turn to within themselves? How well guided are they within themselves? Do they even recognize that light within themselves? Do they even recognize or call upon that God within themselves for guidance? And who do they turn to? Who do they turn to, and who are their advisors? And do they even run all of that advice that they're getting from their advisors, their external advisors? Do they even run all of that advice through that channel of their own divine guidance? Do they do that? Do I have a leader that's doing that? Am I doing that?
Not enough for me, anyway.
And is any of that even considered? What are we considering? What's our top 10 list for the choosing of a leader, including recognizing that within ourselves as we step forward to lead in our lives? So interesting questions. In allowance of how skewed our priorities may be in the choosing of a leader, in a choosing of people to govern with us or to help us. I love just putting that in allowance before it, because it just starts to shift energy. And so as I've been angry at, abuse of power, or, I have to look and say, okay, if I'm feeling like my freedom is being compromised, if I'm feeling like my authority, my self-authority is being compromised, if I'm angry about, somebody else stepping on that self-authority and the leader that is me in my own life, am I still judging that person? Am I still in judgment of that person? Because if I'm in judgment of that person, I'm still in my self-authority not being as clear as I could be. So in allowance of the me who is angry at my self-authority being challenged, who's angry at my self-authority over my own body being challenged, in allowance of the me that's still in judgment in this experience and staying in judgment in this experience, which means an allowance of the me that's choosing to stay in judgment in this experience, choose greater, wider clarity. An allowance of the me that's still choosing to feel victimized and not seeing that everything that is occurring is happening for our highest benefit and is aiding in the rebalancing of us and is aiding in the rebalancing of this universe. In allowance of the me who forgot that yesterday, the day before that, the day before that, and every day last week, and got lost somewhere else. Because it was so disheartening, so disillusioning, so upsetting how these things were being perceived, so burying, so problematic, that I forgot. In allowance of accepting that all of this is happening, even though I can't see it, for our highest good, in journey of rebalancing the human experience, rebalancing this earth, in allowance of my unwillingness to be rebalanced last week, to see things in a little bit different way, to let go of how I was holding something, or how something was being held from a witch hunt from 400 years ago that I was holding on to for dear life, because I just wanted it all to be different now. And it's never going to be different as long as we're holding it the way it was. An allowance of how much we are holding on to and are choosing to hold on to and chose to hold on to because we did not want the experience to occur again. We did not want the same thing to happen. An allowance of us not getting that, holding on to all of this energy and all of these old experiences and how, and the beliefs of them and the thoughts of them and the energy of them has only brought forward more of that same kind of experience. An allowance and how we don't understand how energy works, and we don't understand how we work as a technology. An allowance of how we don't understand ourselves as energy beings, we don't understand ourselves as light beings, and we're not getting or understanding that these things can be more powerfully resolved for us by just allowing the unraveling and the untangling of this all to happen at a light level for all of us. What a crazy, amazing concept, right?
Yeah.
An allowance of allowing whatever entanglements of my light and my light strands that are tangled up, that have shadows embedded in them. An allowance of everything being untangled, shadows being released at a light strand level of us, because it's become way too big for us. Way too big for us. Way too big for us to even consciously get or understand, compute. It's just, even when we step into it, it buries us. What a cool prayer, right? A cool prayer. Going to bed tonight, a prayer, just a prayer, a permission, a thank you for untangling my light. Thank you for releasing the shadows from my light strands that are not allowing light strands to connect more beautifully. Thank you for repairing what's going on at the light strand level of me, in allowance of that. As long as it's safe, appropriate, and highest and best interest of me, highest and best interest of the all, which I am a part of. I am in allowance of that. Feel the energy of that.
Mm-hmm.
I said to you I wasn't going to talk about these energies that I've been playing with, and I'm still kind of not, but actually I am, because they have brought forward this very conversation, because it's time. It's time.
And speaking of time.
Yeah. Cool.
We did a lot of work here. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding.
And even if your issues, for those that are listening, are not quite the same as ours, it will all fit together regardless. It's powerful stuff. Wow. Well, Trace, I can't wait to see what we do next month.
Yeah, I don't know, boy. It really is. It's kind of like we're just stepping forward, acknowledging ourselves as light beings. And I think it's awesome as we close this today, right? The acknowledgement of ourselves as light beings, energy beings, and literally with that permission to untangle my light, free my light. So let's not get mad at these governments. Let's just free our light and remove the shadows from that light, and recognize these very events are inspiring exactly that if we stop judging.
All right. Well, you have been listening to News for the Heart, and we've been getting the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney. I'm in allowance.
And thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Trace.